How your mother will bring you down before complimenting you, or even after complimenting you. That's whether saying she's proud of you, if your mother is the type of person who does say that. My mother doesn't. Or giving you any sort of praise, or simply complimenting you on whether you look beautiful today, or your hairstyle suits you, or that outfit looks good. Before or after that, there will always be a hint, if not a lot, of her bringing you down. Just today, I was actually going to take a picture, an ID picture for something that I need to renew. And so I come back with the picture because I was getting a ride with her back home. And she looks at the picture and she says, "My eyes are wide open. They're too open." And then after that, she says, "But see, Hleles Tombe," translated, "But it's beautiful." And then to me, and this is where the emotional confusion really resides with a narcissistic mother, is that you often feel like you're the one being too sensitive, and perhaps you're the one taking it too seriously, and it was maybe a joke, and you're just taking it too seriously, and it wasn't like that. And I'm only now in this process of healing, learning to validate my own feelings. And I think to a certain extent, I have become sensitive to anything that my mother says. Even if it was purely a joke, I no longer take anything my mother says as a joke, because she has taken so many jabs at my self-esteem and my confidence that even if God were to show me her heart and say she was truly joking, it would honestly take that. It would take God opening up her heart for me to believe it, because I no longer take anything that she says lightly or as a joke, because the emotional confusion that she has put me through was always her defending herself as to say, "Oh, I was just joking." And she would say, "I feel like I can't joke with you guys because you say everything hurts you, or you take it too seriously. Or I was just saying my input and I feel like you guys don't want my input." Whereas her input or her jokes are hurtful. And that's just that. They are hurtful, period. But because she can never admit that that is exactly what she wanted to do, that is exactly how she wanted to make you feel, she wanted to bring you down. And so because these ID pictures of mine, they actually looked pretty sweet, I was cute, and she hated that. And one of the narcissistic traits is that they are often very jealous people. So even something that you might think, okay, why would someone be jealous of a couple of ID pictures? I mean, it's not that deep. But most of the time, as I've now realized, as I now look back, I see that my mother has been jealous of even something very minor, something that's not even a competition. Just yesterday, to prove my point, just yesterday, she was talking about how she was thinking that I am brave. And this is like a whole issue on its own. How my mother, when she sometimes says something about me, something good about me, it's often said in passing, or in just like, I don't know, just, when you garnish food, when you just put that low leaf or something to just garnish, like it's not necessary, but you just like, let me add it there. Let me just, maybe, like I could add it, I could not add it. It feels like a garnish, and not even the good kind. It feels like just an afterthought, or just something said in passing. Sometimes that's how she will compliment me or say anything good about me. So just this other day, she was saying, how brave I am, because we recently have the cutest puppies ever. They are adorable. And I was the first one, and I'm still the only one who touches the puppies, because as of as I have surprisingly discovered about myself. I love dogs. I love them so much, but they're just a lot of work. I don't know if I would get them if I was living in my own place. But anyway, and so she was saying that, and somehow she was mentioning this, how it got her thinking, how she, and of course she made it about her because everything has to be about her. It couldn't have just been about me, as to say, you know what, my baby girl, you're a very brave girl. Like, because I am brave. Most of the time, I'm the one who takes initiative to do certain things, to take the first step in certain things, to try certain things. Not in all cases, but in most cases, I actually am brave. And this is actually one of the first few times that I've been actually able to confidently say that about myself, because my automatic response to anything good about me is just shutting it down and not really admitting it, because I think, oh, like that's just pride. I think I haven't been able to differentiate between pride, being humble, and simply stating facts. Like the fact that I'm brave, in most cases, it's a fact. It's not me being proud. It's not me having pride, and me not mentioning that or acknowledging that or knowing that about myself doesn't make me humble. It actually speaks more to my low self-esteem than me being humble. But me knowing that as a fact and carrying that with boldness, and having that on me as just a strength, knowing that this is my strength. In most cases, I'm brave. In most cases, I'm proactive. I'm an initiator. It's good to acknowledge those things to myself. Granted, there is a way that you can put that might make you seem arrogant or prideful. But for me, even just simply stating this as a fact that I am actually someone brave, it's a whole new concept. It's a whole new me, where I am able to admit to myself my own strengths, good traits about me, without feeling like, oh, I shouldn't mention that, because that is what my family has programmed me into believing, that, oh, I shouldn't ever be the star or shine. I should just always humble myself, which I've mistaken for humility, which I've mistaken for the type of humbleness that the Bible speaks of, being meek. But I was doubting myself. I just had a low self-esteem. I couldn't see and embrace my strengths. That doesn't mean I'm going to go to the whole world shouting out about my strengths, but that just means now I'm going to be taking different strides, knowing that, okay, this is my strength or this is my weakness. Okay? So my mother is mentioning this in passing, by the way. She's mentioning this, that I'm brave, and then quickly within seconds, it turns to her and she says, then she got to thinking about her and how she has been able to do a lot of things and has been brave in a lot of situations, and then she was proud of herself. First of all, how does me, okay? So she saw this instance where I was brave enough to touch the puppies, okay? It's not a big deal, it's not a big moment, but considering the fact that they were not willing or able, and other people would not be willing to also touch like puppies, at first it was a little bit gross, because like the the girl dog had given birth, so they didn't even want to go close to that. But I did show a level of bravery, okay? Nothing to write a book about, nothing to make the news, but it was, to some extent, I showed a certain level of bravery. How does that lead my mother to some deep thinking about herself, about her being brave in her own life, and her coming to a conclusion that she is proud of herself? Excuse me, I see a moment here where that could have been used to actually be proud of me. Let me tell you how I see the story, how the story should have actually gone. She should have said, My baby girl, when you were the only one touching the puppies, and you still are the only one touching the puppies, you were brave enough to go close to the puppies, see if they're okay, touch them. And we even just did some counting, count them how many they are. I was the one touching them, pulling them out of the house dog just to make sure, they're okay. Instead of her saying this, that, what, I realized that in most situations you are actually brave. And I'm proud of you for that. No, 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 no. Of course it couldn't have gone like that, because she couldn't possibly give me that much praise. That would be too much for my narcissistic mother. That would be a lot. That would be her blowing my horn way too much. That would be her blowing my self-esteem way too much. It's almost like my mother is afraid of genuinely complimenting us, complimenting her children, especially me. She's afraid that somehow she's gonna inflate us, like we're gonna get too big for our shoes. And it's the craziest thing, because if she had actually normalized complimenting her children, giving them the confidence boost, the emotional boost that they needed, we actually wouldn't crave it so much. Because even with my narcissistic sister, I see it that she craves the attention, the praise, the love. And I crave that too, because we never got it from our own mother. Because in some illusion that she has in her mind, we are going to get too big for our shoes. And this is something she would never say. But now I can finally understand and see that this is exactly what she's afraid of, that we're going to get too big for our shoes. She can't fully and genuinely compliment us because we're going to think we are better than her. Maybe even specifically, she's afraid that we're going to think we're better than her. Like my mother, sometimes I feel like she's competing with us like we are her siblings. And we are not. We are her children. We need a mother, not a sibling to compete with us, not a sibling to be jealous of us. No, I don't need that. I didn't need that. My sister didn't need that. We didn't need that. And unfortunately, she was able to manage to turn one of her children, that being my sister, as narcissistic as her. I remember this one time, I got a prophecy at church. So the pastor says, you are a worshiper and you need to continue worshiping God. And this was at a time where, like I said, I had already learned to shut myself down, that any kind of compliment, any kind of praise, any good thing that was said about me, I had already learned to shut it down, because my family never validated that, and I was still young. I still desperately needed a lot of their validation. I mean, even in my early 20s, up until last year, in fact, last year I was stepping into my late 20s. Up until last year, I still desperately and painfully needed a lot of validation from my mother and my sister. And so we come back from church, and then my mother and my sister say that the prophecy was actually meant for my sister and not for me, because my sister can sing. So she is obviously the worshiper. And I remember I just kept quiet. And this is what would often happen in any case where something good was mentioned about me, where my family would try to minimize it or make it small or make it not about me. Even this other time, one of my mother's friends, I don't know if it was one friend or two friends, but my mother's friend had a dream about me, 2 dreams. And the dream mentioned something about crying. And then my mother asked me if lately I had been crying at that time. if at that time I had been crying or feeling sad. And I was like, no, I don't think so. And then my sister jumped in, because even if it's a bad thing, because crying is not necessarily a good thing, because in the dream it seemed like I was sad, crying out of pain or out of hurt or out of sadness. But no, because my sister has also been programmed by my narcissistic mother that everything has to be about her. It has to be about my sister. She has to be the center of attention. She quickly jumps in and says, "Oh, maybe she was actually dreaming about me, because I've been crying a lot, because a lot of things have been happening in my life." And I quickly, that day, I think it happened early this year, and I was like, "No, it definitely was not about you." And she was actually offended at the fact that I stood up to her like that, and took away that position of her making everything about herself. Because in these two dreams that my mother's friends had, they specifically said they saw me. They specifically said it was your eldest daughter crying in the dream. But no, because nothing can ever be about me, even if it's a sad thing, because the dream didn't indicate anything good, okay? It didn't indicate victory or success. I was crying. But no, because my sister is so used to being the center of attention, she wanted to even grab that and make it about her, so that her pain can be acknowledged. Because even if that dream maybe was something foreseen for me, no, it just has to be about her. So back to the prophecy. That was one of the first times that I actually stood up to my sister and kind of just took away the shine that she likes to bring to herself. And I was just like, no, I'm going to grab that back, and you're not going to have this moment, because it's not even something worth having. Like, I'm crying in the dream. Why do you want to own that? Why do you want to take that? Back to the prophecy. So we got back home, and then my sister is like, my sister and my mother, because my mother just loves my sister, even though she's narcissistic, my mother, that is, but she just prefers my sister over me. Of course, this would never be admitted. Even my sister, who has been in the graces of my mother, would never admit this, because they don't see anything. That's just another thing with this dysfunctionality in this family. Nobody sees anything wrong. It's like you the problem. If you say something wrong, then you are the problem. If you think you're being emotionally abused, then you are the problem. You are probably the abuser. If you see something dysfunctional, then you are the one who's dysfunctional. That's just how it works. That's how I have learned to keep my mouth shut, because nobody wants to confront anything that is unhealthy going on between us. So we come back from church after I was prophesied that I have the spirit of a worshiper. And then they both jump in and say, yeah, the pastor must have made a mistake. He was talking about my sister, and because she sings, so she's the obvious worshiper. And I just kept quiet. That was just like, that was always my that was always just the way that I chose to handle things. No matter how painful and hurtful it was, I would just keep quiet and be like, okay, maybe it wasn't meant for me. But luckily at that time, a few weeks back at that time, I had been watching a sermon by Pastor Stephen Furtick, and he said, if you are a major warrior, then you have the potential to be a major worshiper. And it was the peak of my anxiety when I was listening to that, because I was constantly worrying about everything. And the Lord just spoke to me through Pastor Stephen Furtick's sermon that if you constantly worry, if you are such a worrier, you have the potential to be a great worshiper. So I think at that time when that pastor prophesied that to me, that I am a worshiper, I just I agreed because I had already listened to the sermon, even though my family wouldn't have agreed. But at the time, I just kept quiet. I was like, you know what? It's fine. I'm just going to keep quiet. And so today, having the instance where my mother saw that the ID pictures that I had, and the first thing she had to say was that my eyes are so wide open. It just reminded me, and I think because I'm still home and unemployed and being taken care of by her, I'm trying my best to be respectful. I'm trying my best to just keep the peace without at the same time compromising my peace, because I think previously I would just maintain the peace by accepting any kind of hurt, abuse, or talk or behavior towards me. Right now, I no longer tolerate that. I try as much as possible to be firm and state what I don't like. I don't want to drag it out to an argument because it gets nowhere. I try my best to just state what I don't like and keep it moving, because once the conversation drags, I know they're just gonna simply confuse me and then turn it back on me as to say somehow I'm the problem, or I'm the sensitive one, or I'm the one that they just don't know how to live with. That's another one that they've thrown at me a lot, that we just don't know how to be around you. We feel like everything we do upsets you, but they're just the ones who are not willing to be accountable for their actions. And more than anything, they're not willing to change their behavior that frustrates me, upsets me, and hurts me. So now I'm just trying my best to be respectful. And I've always been a very respectful child. I've always been such a good girl, because for me, being a good girl and doing everything mommy says, trying my best to make mommy proud, was my way of getting my mother's affection and love. But now, the respect is coming more from a place of just being realistic, that if I should choose to be angry, which is well within my rights because I have been abused, hurt, taken advantage of. But right now I'm being respectful because I realize that I could be homeless if I choose to be angry. If I choose to stay mad at the fact that my mother never really loved me the way that I wish she had loved me, and still continues to not love me the way that I need her to love me. If I get stuck on the fact that my mother is never really proud of me, never says she's proud of me, she seems to never really see me, it seems like nothing that I do is enough for her, that somehow I keep fighting for my mother's love as if I'm a 6-year-old child. And like I feel needy, I feel pathetic. Like, when you're chasing a guy that doesn't love you, but you love him so much, and you feel stupid and you feel pathetic because you can see that he's just not that into you, but somehow you keep crawling back to him. And when he comes back, you open up back to him because you just keep hoping that maybe one day he's gonna love me. Maybe one day he'll marry me. Maybe one day he'll see me. He'll see how great I am. That's how I feel towards my mother, that I keep trying to make her see. Like, Mom, look at me. Like, really look at me and see that I'm great and be proud of me. Really see me. Really love me. And I feel like most of the time my mother is looking at me, but is not really looking at me, but looking past me. And whenever she has to compliment me or praise me for something, it's just like in passing. And there will always be something that she says before or after that will kind of bring me down. Just so that she makes sure that, hey, you don't have a big ego, because somehow in her deluded mind, she thinks that her just loving me explicitly, just loving me fully and completely will make me more than I think that I am, or more than I should be. I don't know. But somehow in her mind, fully just being there for me, fully seeing me and acknowledging my talents, my gifts, my beauty, acknowledging me as her child, it just seems like that would just make me think I am all that. It feels like I am a nemesis to my own mother, and she doesn't even realize that. Or maybe she does, and she just obviously wouldn't say something like that. She wouldn't say, like, yeah, I actually am jealous of my child. Or I actually don't want to congratulate her in a certain way, or praise her in a certain way, or compliment her in a certain way. Or I don't want to say that I'm proud of her fully, because then she will think she's all that. That is honestly the mentality that my mother has. That she thinks somehow for her to be fully there for me, fully there for us as her children, maybe it will make us not need her. And maybe that's just where she wants us to be, at a place where we always need her, where we are always craving for her validation. And I'm sick of it. I am sick of it. I have cried out for my mother, like even just getting to my 20s. To me, it's crazy that sometimes I look back at the things that I would do just to get my mother's attention. Like even dumb things like getting hurt around the house and telling my mother in my 20s, as if I'm a 10-year-old. Because at the deepest parts of my heart, I still yearn for the attention that my mother never gave me as a child. And one of the harshest but truthful things that I got from the couple of counseling sessions that I went to, my counselor said that now you are an adult and you don't need your mother's validation. And she wasn't necessarily trying to be harsh, but she was actually telling me facts. It's sad, it's painful that I never got the love, the attention, the validation that I needed from my mother when I was a child. But the honest truth is now I'm an adult. In as much as I think the yearning might always be there, but I now have to mother myself. I now have to learn to validate myself. I now have to learn to lean on God to tell me who I am in His creation, in His plans for my life. I now have to find my worth in the eyes of Christ. How does He see me? And what does He want me to see about myself? Like the fact that I can now admit that I'm brave. I thank the Lord for that, because I couldn't say that even if I knew it. Somehow I had just learned to shut down every good thing about me, because that is exactly what my mother did to me. She would shut down any good thing about me. Instead of fully being there and fully being proud and fully being a mother, she has been stuck in her own pain, in her own hurts, in her own judgments, or even fear of losing us. And so maybe her not being fully proud of us or showing us love is her way of keeping us in the palm of her hands, always begging for more, always wanting more of her love and more of her attention. But the opposite is actually happening, because she is actually driving us away. And in as much as she has already groomed my sister to be as narcissistic as her, I believe this will also happen with my sister, because she has definitely pushed me away. And I was the one groveling at my mother's feet. I was the one who did everything well so that my mother would be proud. I was the one who was always listening to my mother's cries and hurts and pains, playing her psychologist and her own mother. I was playing mother to my mother. And she has driven me away. So instead of her being on some power trip where she keeps us in the palm of her hands, she's actually achieving the opposite. By her not fully loving us and fully being there, or being there for us, fully being proud of us, she's actually driving us away from her. And I'm not even sorry at this point. There were so many times where whenever I spoke out and spoke to my mother, I would end up being the one feeling sorry for my mother. instead of it being the other way around, instead of my mother feeling sorry for me and seeing my hurt and seeing my pain. Even the first time I told my mother about my anxiety, somehow I still had to be concerned about my mother, that she's carrying a lot. She has a lot to worry about. When will it ever be about me? When will it ever be about the children? When will our own mother listen to us instead of us always listening to her, being there for her? And I'm just sick and tired of my mother not loving me. And I'm painfully making peace with the fact that she will never love me, she will never see me, she will never be proud of me.